this is a big conflict.
Let's let's give her 5 minutes.
Then I have your meeting for you too.
Okay, I'll mute this as soon as we.
Okay, I'm.
Well, You've got 5 more minutes if you need to go get anything else and. Ready?
Done.
All right, thank you for your patience with us. For those of you watching with us live or who will watch this later, we had some delays, but we're ready to go now. So we'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner McFadden.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start with public comment, and we'll open the floor for public comment. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm slow.
Instead, you're gonna pass them on. Yeah.
Thank you. Paul Sturm, South Weaver City. My public comments are primarily on agenda item 4. Which is the Castle Cove project. If you read what the action items say, action items still say that there's 5,461 gross acres. And that there's 8,852 acres. Each one of them was off by a factor of 1,000. That number was corrected during the last meeting and voted on by Planning Commission. These corrections were made in the consent agenda minutes on pages 9 of 24 for phase 1 and on phase 2, page 23 of 24. I say, although they were in the consent agenda, that information was not conveyed into the action items at the beginning of the agenda. B, there is also a typo in the draft development agreement for Castle Cove phase 1. The address in the development agreement shows in paragraph 14 under notices, Castle Rock's excavation, 8085 East Juniper Court. There is no such address as 8085 East Juniper Court. There is an address of 8085 South Juniper Court. If it was east, it would be halfway up the mountain. Also, I did not see a development agreement presented in the packet, draft or otherwise, for the Castle Cove phase 2. If this is supposed to be a final plat, the same documents that appear for phase 1 should also be in the packet for phase 2 for review by the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move to item number 3, approval of consent agenda. Are there any concerns by my fellow commissioners about the minutes from our last meeting that need to be addressed?
Yeah. So in the matrix, it shows the permitted and not permitted for the for RV.
Yeah.
It was a residential medium, said permitted. I think we said it at last meeting, but I think it needs to be changed to not permitted. Julie Losey was referred to as Julie Ross in theirs. And these just fixed.
You recall where she was her name was misspelled by chance?
I didn't even notice it. But I did know that. Now residential monitor, efficiency not permitted. Those are not gonna allow RV storage. Monitor.
Do you see that, Trevor?
It's on page 3.
Yeah,
Of
I
the
see the
packet.
Lindus matrix. I don't see the name.
I can fix that. I'll get that.
Okay.
But I'm trying to find your name here now.
Thanks for that. That was a good call.
Yeah, we can correct those.
Eagle Eyes McFadden over there. Nice job.
Old eagle eyes, that's what they call them.
Commissioner Scola, did you have anything to add to that, those adjustments? Okay. Anything else?
No, I'm wondering where it was misspelled.
Everyone's on the hunt for.
It's
We're gonna find it.
right here on, it's on page 4 of 24.
Okay.
And it's right there in the middle of the paragraph.
Okay, there,
Item number 5.
under discussion.
Oh, yeah. Double S instead of double E.
It's all good. My last name gets spelled in so many different ways.
I actually
Roll.
counted a million times.
All right, I'll look for a motion to approve consent agenda with the adjusted items.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda for planning commission 2023-07-13 minutes with the noted corrections.
A second.
All in favor?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Okay, action item number 4, final plat for Castle Cove, phase 1. Trevor, do you want to walk us through what we're looking at tonight?
Absolutely. Good to my page of my notes. Okay, we've it's important to note with Castle Cove phase 1 and phase 2, they're not part of the same subdivision. They just named them phase 1 and phase 2. And I know that that's confusing. That's just a name that they chose and they wanted to go by. So so it's Castle Cove phase 1 subdivision and Castle Cove phase 2 subdivision. Normally it's Castle Cove phase subdivision phase 1, right?
Got
So really weird nomenclature. There we go. Whew, that was a, don't use big words if you can't have them roll off your tongue. So that's a good note to just remember on these two. So Castle Cove phase 1 does have the drafted development agreement with that really just dictates when the land is going to be transferred over to the developer and what stipulations the city has on vacating easements and correcting locations of stormwater and things like that. And so it's an administrative development agreement and not a land use development agreement. And so it's for your reference tonight, but it's not going to be part of the motion to approve because that's a city council administrative item. However, the final plat is the land use item that is in your purview. So we looked at the preliminary plan acceptance and any conditions that were made of its acceptance, and there was no conditions of approval. And the packet was complete for the preliminary plan, and so staff recognizes that as a complete packet and gives that to the planning commission to approve the acceptance of the preliminary plan and then a recommendation of the final plat to the city council. When staff reviewed the preliminary or the final plat, everything seemed in order. The lot sizes, the widths and other dimensions are all compliant with city code. And it was fairly straightforward process on that. In our engineering review, and Brandon can answer more questions about this, there were areas that were not complete, but they're not complete because there's more work that needs to be done prior to recordation, not necessarily prior to a final plat approval. And those are the easement vacations on the properties. So until the plat's recorded, those easements can remain in effect. And in order to record the plat, the people who hold those easements, cross access easements and others, will need to vacate their rights to those properties in order for us to record the new plat, because the new plat doesn't have those easements notated on them or issued. However, if we record it and if they don't take those off, then they're all still there, and it will be out of compliance for our plat. So that's something on the administrative side. We will just make sure that they have those vacations in hand prior to recordation. It's not something that needs to hold up the final plat because it's kind of a, why would I vacate an easement if you don't have a plan to do anything with the land later? Does that make sense? We record the plat after the improvements are completed or escrowed for. I believe that we're requiring the road to be complete
Yes.
prior to recordation in the development agreement. And so so there will be access granted prior to their vacation of those easements. And so we feel that that's the most appropriate time to require that item. Other than that, the engineering review is complete and there are no other exceptions found. And that's our review. We would recommend your recommended approval to the city council.
Great, thank you, Trevor. I'll open up for discussion on this particular item.
We're talking phase 1 right now, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Anything? From anyone else?
Oh, I take that back. Lester Drive. It's referenced on the plat as Lester Street. And I'm just wondering, is that?
Believe it or not.
Changed?
Lester Street is the correct name of the whole thing,
Okay,
but we've always,
called it
Or-
Lester Drive.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's typically referred to as Lester Drive, but the correct name is actually Lester Street.
Okay, is there any clarification that's gonna take place then? Because I know there's a lot that reference it as Lester Drive. But seeing it on there as street, drive and street aren't.
They're not the
typically
same.
Synonymous.
No, they're not synonymous.
So-
So the way that the plat needs to be recorded is with the correct name, which is street.
Street name.
Yes. I think the fact that people refer to it as drive is just because it started out somehow that way, but even the signs out there say street.
They do say street.
There are,
right?
I believe there may be one or two that say drive, but according to the county records, street is the correct name.
Okay, good to know.
We can give an honorary title of Lester Drive underneath it.
Down in St. George, they call it the Bard.
Word. Any comments, Commissioner McFadden or Stoll? Yep. All right, then I'll look for a motion to recommend approval on item number 4. Or motion, sorry. Don't wanna assume.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval for the final plat for Castle Cove Phase 1. 11 lot residential subdivision, approximately 5.461 gross acres, located at approximately 1050 East Lester Street for application or for applicant Lane Cap.
Can I get a second?
Second that.
All right, quick roll call on this one, starting with Commissioner.
Quick question,
Sure.
do we need to add about the easements in our motion?
The recording.
I don't think you need to add it in your motion.
Okay.
I feel like it's already covered. It has to be that way
Before it can be
before they can
recorded.
record it, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Okay, starting with Commissioner School.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Bye.
Yes,
and I'm a yes as well. All right, item number 5, final plat for Castle Cove Phase 2, which is a separate subdivision. Thank you for that. Trevor, you want to walk us through that one?
Absolutely. Just real quick, Mr. Scola, is your mic on? Okay, I just didn't hear it. We've had technical difficulties, so I just want to make sure. Yeah, I don't hear anything, do you? Okay.
It's working, I can hear.
You can hear him? Oh, wow, I can't.
You can hear that?
It's connected right to his brain. Okay, so Castle Cove Phase 2, yes, separate subdivision, but they wanted it to tie into the other Castle Cove development that's going in, and so they opted for Castle Cove Phase 2 subdivision. This one is also a fairly straightforward subdivision. There were no conditions of approval on the subdivision. The preliminary plan is complete and can constitute a full application. The final plat is before you today. There's no development agreement or any other attachments to that development. So it's as simple as they come, which we haven't had one of those in a while, so it's kind of exciting. And so this is a 13 lot subdivision. The units per acre is 1.47 units per acre, but it's residential moderate. And so it's well below the required minimum there. All the dimensions are appropriate, and the lot positionings are correct on the development. There were a few items that were of note on the engineering review, and I'll have Brandon talk about those a little bit in more depth.
Okay. I think there's only one
Item, sorry.
item, and that was just the actual approval letter from the canal company. They're actually the ones that are providing the secondary water for this subdivision. And I think they still had a couple comments that the developer's engineer was correcting. And so just, I don't think there's any problem with it moving forward to city council, subject to getting that letter. But just noting that they're still working on, they're minor things, but they aren't issuing the letter until they're addressed.
Is there any risk to the city by approving this before that letter is received, Brandon?
Sorry, say that again.
We have a process in place to not allow certain developments unless they have that in place anyway, right?
Well, everybody has to have an approval letter.
Right.
Yes, that's the opportunity for the secondary water companies to, since they don't necessarily have an approval process like we do, we kind of bring them with us. And so that's their opportunity to make sure that what they show in their plans is the infrastructure that they are willing to approve and accept when it gets constructed. Because we don't want to have them trying to work through that separately as they're trying to build the subdivision. It all just needs to work together. So that's why we require the approval letters.
And at the final process, we just require all of that to be completed prior to a pre-construction meeting to allow them to construct the improvements.
So they can't even break ground until that approval letter.
Right, no,
Regardless
right,
of our approvals.
correct. Yeah, we won't hold the pre-con. They won't be able to start construction until they have that.
But we can recommend approval with that condition.
Yes,
Correct.
yeah, I don't think there's no harm in doing that.
Got it.
Just so it's part of the record of the motion, it's good to note those type of things.
Got it. Anything else you wanted to add, Brandon or Trevor?
No, I think Trevor was asking about and on page 22 of 24, there's kind of there's bolded text at the end of E3, and that appears like it's a remaining comment that I'm making, but it's the way that I format my review letters is that on the next review, I put it in bold in a different color, but it's not showing up here. And then once it's addressed, I just put complete at the beginning of the comment. So it's been addressed because it says complete, but because it's bolded, it looks like maybe there's something remaining there. Just so you're aware, the subdivision does sit at the foot of the hillside there. The canal sits above there, so they have complied with the sensitive lands ordinance. The first geotech had some questions. The report still has some questions in it. That report was updated along with a geologic study, and I reviewed that. Didn't have any concerns with anything that was addressed in there, and so that has all been addressed in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Trevor?
Nope.
All right, I'll open it up for comments from the commission.
So I'm just curious, did we get the Christensen report or did we get an updated report?
So the geologic, so the first report was the Christensen report, and the geologic study, hazard study was done as the second report, and that addressed all of the any questions that I had that I felt like didn't fully get addressed to satisfy the ordinance.
I was just curious.
I'm happy to provide those if you're interested.
Okay.
Okay.
If there's no concerns, I mean,
No.
there would be anything that I would probably point out or find that you wouldn't have already noticed and probably taken care of.
I love looking at geotech
Right?
studies. They're so,
They're just riveting,
They're-
just like good read.
there's never people in this room that would love them.
Right, well,
Like argillaceous.
yeah, they're never really looked at unless there's a problem.
Commissioner Boatright, any concerns?
Nope.
McFadden,
Nope.
school?
You had just asked about putting the city. Did you get your answer to your question? About- You asked if you put the city.
Yes.
You got to answer that.
Yep.
Okay. It was just I know we talked about it, I mean, I just didn't know if we got to answer.
Yeah, the answer was what Brandon mentioned as far as part of our overall process.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm good.
Then, no, then I got online answer and that was explained, so.
Then I'll look for a motion.
Hold on, I have two things. One, just again, the acreage, want to make sure that it gets referenced correctly is the 5.146, or sorry, 5.461. Or no, that's phase one, phase. Wish I would have named it differently, but why is it phase two if it's,
That's what they wanted
Okay.
to name it.
I'm not gonna go into that. So 8.852 acres instead of the 8,852, just making sure that gets corrected. My only question is, do we not need to have a development agreement for this phase two?
No,
Is it because,
It
Why?
meets code.
it's a separate subdivision and there's no special conditions or.
Needing to be placed
administrative
on it.
items that we need to
because
place.
this one's already residential moderate in terms of its zoning, so no conditions placed on
Zoning
it.
meets,
Okay.
lot orientation and size meets, there's no need to have any land use development agreement, and then there's no maintenance operations agreement or any other agreements added onto this. I know it's rare because we have done agreements out of our ears for the last 2 years. But
Well, there
Shangri-La right here.
the other, I mean, the other development agreement does address one issue, and that is that this can't actually have any building permits issued on it until the road is built in phase one.
In phase one.
Because
Okay.
if, up until that point, there's the 30 lot restriction, right? But once the road's built, then there's no longer the restriction.
yeah, we can allow the streets to be placed, we can allow the subdivision of the property, but we will not allow a building permit until that other street is stubbed in.
Okay.
But that's already covered in the other development agreement, so there's nothing needed on this one.
Okay, and the only other thing is the final plat, because I know on this one it's saying it's the preliminary. With what gets sent to city council, will they actually see the final plat, or is that because things are still being like worked out, letters, all of that, because it just said preliminary
If-
plat.
If it says that in the memo, that may just be a typo or whatever. What you see right now is the final plat.
It is the final.
It is the final
Yeah.
plat. It's ready to record. I mean, it's done.
It's ready to, okay, and I think it was more just for reference on page, like right here. So it's page 10. Where it shows the actual subdivision lots and layout for, oh, sorry, I'm talking about phase one. We're talking on phase two, so it's page. I'm scrolling, 24, so the last page. I thought that also said preliminary On it.
On the plat itself.
on the actual, yeah. But maybe it was on the phase one that I was noticing it saying preliminary instead of final.
It's not. a
That's
great-
not-
Maybe I was mixing them up.
I don't see it on that one. And just so you know, like, even if it says things like that.
The preliminary, we're gonna get the
That
final.
they're not going to send that plat to get recorded. I mean, they will take the text off, so.
The final.
What
When they get the-
yeah.
when they get the Mylar.
The phase one actually doesn't say phase one, it just says Castle Cove subdivision, right? But. We've been referring to it as phase one. It does say preliminary plat, not for recordation. But in my review, it's the final plat. It's ready.
Okay.
They just need to take the text off.
I think the plat's clean.
Any additional questions? If not, I'll look for a motion.
Yeah, we'll fix that.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval. To, final plat for Castle Cove Phase 2, approximately 8.852 acres located at approximately 7550 south, 1160 east. For applicant Lane Cap.
I'll second that motion. I'd like to amend. Or an amendment.
Are you okay with the amendment? Oh, why don't you go ahead and state your amendment and then we'll share.
That it's on condition of them receiving an approval letter or letter from the Davis and Weber Counties Canal Company.
Are you okay with that amendment?
Yes.
Okay, can I get another second?
I'll second. With the amendments.
All right. Are we covered? Okay. We'll do a roll call then. All in favor, starting with Commissioner Lucy.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Thank you. Trevor, new business.
I only have a little bit of new business. I registered you all for the conference coming up in September. I also registered myself. We'll see if that happens or not. But but yes, you're all registered for the full conference both days, 28th and 29th of September. So come prepared to learn.
So
I may not be there. But
it depends on other events.
depends on
Yeah.
some personal events that are exciting, so.
Very
We'll
nice.
see.
I'm looking forward to that. I think that'll be great. Anything else for us?
Thank you for
APA.
registering me for that.
You're welcome.
I'm fairly certain you told us to register for it.
No, he gets to do it for us.
Yeah.
I get to
He
pay
didn't
for
say
it.
anything.
Oh,
He
I
just-
paid for it for you, so.
Okay.
He pays for it and registers.
Yeah. And you can register yourself as well if you want to. I won't reimburse you for that. Just kidding.
Any additional concerns or comments?
No.
Of course.
Oh, just be ready, October, we are gonna be, probably knee deep in a complete overhaul of Title 11. So we will try to get you all of that information prior to that October meeting. Because we'd like to get that all wrapped up. We may not move forward with it in October. We actually may need a couple meetings to go through it. And so we may have to call a special meeting. Because we are completely rewriting Title 11 for the state code compliance. We have to have that all completed by February. Ideally, we'd like to get it done prior to January, just so that we're not bombarding a whole new council with a complete overhaul of the text. And so we'd like to get that done prior to that, but we'll get you the information early. We'll probably do a work session in September on it. And start with the ordinance in October. So be ready because it's a hefty one. I've been writing it for the last 3 months, so.
This is the one that you were telling me about earlier, right?
Mhm.
With the new laws coming in.
Yeah,
Yeah, that should be very interesting. I agree.
Are we sure they're just not going to change the laws in January?
Oh, they're probably.
who knows? Who knows? Yeah, I told, I had some feedback for the moderate income housing, because I submitted that moderate income housing report the beginning of August, that was due August 1. That was fully submitted, but then they asked for feedback and things that would help cities. I said, quit giving us legislation with zero support to get the legislation in place in our own cities, because some of our small cities, it takes a lot to rewrite our entire code in 2 months.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did they respond to that?
They have not. But I made sure I wrote it. They're like, thank you for that feedback, and here's more legislation next.
Stop. Just-
All right, any comments from the commission? I'll start with Commissioner Scholl. Anything you'd like to say or bring up?
I'm good.
Okay, Commissioner McFadden?
Nope.
Commissioner Boatright?
No.
Lucy?
Okay.
I'm good as well. So, actually, you had called out. Just real quick, so we forgot to mention this, Paul's comments about the address, is that something that we need to address?
Yeah, we'll just
We gotta
fix that.
cover.
That's it.
Perfect.
A lot of those textual errors are, we fix those prior to
I'm glad you caught it.
Yeah.
'cause
Yeah, I didn't see Almeida.
It's a Morgan, basically, right? That is,
All right, I'll look for a motion to adjourn then.
I'll make a motion